The Vexery space station hung in the darkness of space like a metal flower with too many petals. Commander Kira Chen pressed her back against the cold wall of the maintenance tunnel and counted her breaths. She had been hiding in this alien station for 3 days now. Her mission was simple: get to the central command room, steal the data crystal, get out alive. Simple missions never stayed simple. The Vexery were tall creatures with skin like blue glass and eyes that glowed soft purple in the dim light. They had conquered 17 star systems in the past decade. Earth was next on their list. The Galactic Council had done nothing. They never did anything when humans were involved. Humans were too new to the galactic stage, too weak, too primitive. That was what everyone thought. Kira smiled in the darkness. Let them keep thinking that. She had trained for 7 years for moments like this. Earth's best soldiers were not the ones who could shoot straight or fight hard. The best ones were the ones who could become ghosts. Kira was the best ghost Earth had ever created. She moved through the tunnel without making a sound. Her boots had special padding that absorbed vibration. Her suit was made from material that reflected no light and gave off no heat signature. To any scanner she was invisible. To any eye she was a shadow. The tunnel opened into a large storage area filled with metal containers stacked 3 stories high. Kira slipped between them like water flowing through rocks. She could hear Vexery guards talking somewhere nearby. Their language sounded like wind chimes breaking. She had learned enough of it to understand basic commands, but conversation was beyond her. She reached the edge of the storage area and stopped. Beyond this point was the main corridor. 12 guards stood between her and the command room. She had mapped their patrol patterns over the past 3 days. There was a window of exactly 47 seconds when the corridor would be empty enough for her to cross. Kira checked her wrist display. The window was coming in 3 minutes. She settled into position and waited. That was when she heard the sound behind her. It was soft, a tiny shuffle of movement. Then another, and another. Kira turned slowly and her heart stopped beating for 1 full second. 3 small creatures sat in a row behind her. They looked like tiger cubs from Earth, but their fur was silver with black stripes, and their eyes glowed faint gold in the darkness. They were about the size of house cats. They sat perfectly still and stared at her, with an intelligence that made her skin prickle. She had heard rumors about these creatures. The Vexery called them Kirani. They were native to this region of space. The Vexery had captured many of them and kept them as status symbols. They were supposed to be wild and The Vexery used shock collars to control them. These 3 had no collars. Kira held up one hand slowly. She did not know why she did it. It was instinct. Back on Earth she had grown up on a farm with dogs and cats and horses. She knew animals. She knew how to move around them without causing fear. The lead Kirani tilted its head. Its golden eyes blinked once. Then it stood up and walked toward her. Kira did not move. The creature stopped at her feet and looked up at her. Then it did something that changed everything. It rubbed its head against her leg. The other 2 Kirani stood and walked over. They circled around her legs like house cats greeting their owner after a long day. Kira felt warmth spread through her chest. She had been alone on this station for 3 days. The simple touch of another living creature was almost overwhelming. She knelt down slowly. The lead Kirani climbed into her lap without hesitation. It weighed almost nothing. Its fur was softer than silk. It made a sound deep in its throat that was almost like purring. Kira knew she should push them away. She had a mission. She could not take care of 3 alien creatures while trying to steal classified data from a heavily guarded command room. This was insane. But when she looked into those golden eyes, she saw something that made her decision for her. She saw trust. Pure and complete trust. These creatures had somehow sensed that she was different from the Vexery. They had chosen her. On Earth there was an old saying, "You do not choose cats. Cats choose you." Apparently that rule applied across the galaxy. Kira stood up slowly. The Kirani jumped down from her lap but stayed close to her feet. She checked her wrist display again. Her window was coming in 90 seconds. She looked down at the 3 silver creatures. They looked back at her with those glowing eyes. Well, simple missions never stayed simple anyway. She moved toward the corridor entrance. The Kirani followed in perfect silence. Their paws made no sound on the metal floor. They stayed in the shadows just like she did. They understood stealth. They understood hunting. Kira reached the edge of the corridor and waited. 60 seconds. 40. 20. 10. The last guard turned the corner and disappeared. Kira ran. She was fast. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters on the plains of Africa. They could not run as fast as other predators, but they could keep going long after everything else had stopped. Earth's gravity was heavy compared to most worlds. Human muscles were dense. Human bones were thick. When a human ran in lower gravity, they moved like something out of a nightmare. Kira crossed the corridor in 3 seconds. She pressed herself against the wall beside the command room door and looked back. The 3 Kirani sat at the edge of the corridor. They had not followed her across the open space. They watched her with those intelligent eyes. Then the lead Kirani stood up. It looked at her, it looked at the corridor, and it started walking toward her right down the center of the main hallway. Kira felt her blood freeze. A guard appeared at the far end of the corridor. The Kirani kept walking. Its 2 companions stood up and followed. The guard saw them. Its purple eyes went wide. It opened its mouth to call for help, and then all three Kiranis started running, but not toward Kira. They split apart and ran in 3 different directions. The guard shouted something in Vec. Alarms started screaming. More guards appeared from side corridors. They chased after the silver blurs that raced between their legs and around corners and under. Equipment. Chaos. Complete and beautiful chaos. Kira stood in the shadows beside the command room door. Nobody was looking at her. Every single guard on the station was chasing 3 small creatures that moved like lightning made solid. She smiled. Then she opened the door and slipped inside. The command room glowed with blue light from dozens of holographic displays. Vexury technology was beautiful in a cold way. Everything curved. Everything flowed. Nothing had edges. Kira had heard that the Vexury believed sharp corners trapped evil spirits. She thought it was strange that a species advanced enough to conquer star systems still believed in spirits. But then again, humans still said bless you when someone sneezed. Every species had its quirks. The room was empty. Every officer had rushed out to help catch the Kirani. Kira could hear the chaos continuing in the corridors outside. Shouts, running footsteps, the occasional crash of something being knocked over. Those 3 little creatures were causing more disruption than a whole team of human commandos could have managed. She moved to the central console. The data crystal should be stored in a secure compartment beneath the main display. Her intelligence had been very specific about this. The crystal contained everything: fleet movements, invasion plans, weakness in the Vexury command structure. With this information, Earth could prepare. Earth could survive. Kira ran her fingers along the edge of the console. There was a seam that was slightly different from the rest. She pressed it, and a small drawer slid out. Empty. Her stomach dropped. She checked the drawer again, ran her hands along the inside. Nothing. Someone had moved the crystal. Kira closed her eyes and forced herself to breathe slowly. Panic was useless. Panic got people killed. She needed to think. The Vexury commander of this station was named Admiral Vex. She had studied his file for weeks. He was paranoid, obsessive. He did not trust anyone. A commander like that would not leave something valuable in a standard secure location. He would keep it close. He would keep it where he could watch it. She scanned the room. There in the corner, a small altar with a glowing crystal sitting on top of it. The crystal was purple and pulsed with soft light. It was a religious artifact, sacred to the Vexury. No, not sacred. Hidden. Kira walked over and picked up the crystal. It was warm in her hand. She turned it over and saw the data port built into the base. The Admiral had hidden the stolen data inside a fake religious relic. Clever. She slipped the crystal into her pack. Mission complete. Now she just needed to get back to her ship. The alarms suddenly stopped. The silence was worse than the noise had been. Kira moved to the door and listened. Footsteps, coming closer. Multiple individuals, speaking in low, urgent voices. She could not understand most of it, but she caught one word: Kirani. They had caught the creatures. Her chest tightened. Those 3 small beings had saved her mission. They had trusted her, and now they were captured. Kira knew what she should do. She should find another way out. Get to her ship. Complete the mission. Earth needed that data. Millions of lives depended on it. 3 small alien creatures were not worth risking everything. She stood at the door with her hand on the release panel. All she had to do was slip out and disappear into the maintenance tunnels. The Kirani were not her responsibility. She did not owe them anything. But she kept seeing those golden eyes, kept feeling that soft fur rubbing against her leg, kept hearing that sound that was almost like purring. On Earth, humans had a special relationship with animals. They had for thousands of years. Dogs and cats and horses had been partners, friends, family. Humans protected the creatures that trusted them. That was what made humans different from so many other species in the galaxy. The Galactic Council thought humans were primitive because they still formed bonds with animals. They thought it was a weakness, a sign of a species that had not fully evolved. They were wrong. Kira made her decision. She was not leaving without those Kirani. She opened the door and slipped into the corridor. The station was still in chaos, but it was organized chaos now. Guards were moving in patterns, searching. Someone had realized that the Kirani appearance was not a coincidence. They were looking for an intruder. Kira moved through the shadows. She could hear voices ahead. A large room. The station's holding area. That was where they would take captured animals. She reached the entrance and looked inside. The room was full of cages. Dozens of them. Most held silver and gold and copper-colored creatures with glowing eyes that watched everything. They all wore shock collars. They all sat perfectly still. In the center of the room stood 3 Vexury guards. They were putting collars on the 3 silver Kirani that had followed Kira in the lead. Kirani was struggling, biting, fighting. One of the guards had a bleeding hand. The guard raised its shock stick. The device crackled with blue electricity. Kira did not think. She moved. The first guard fell before it even knew she was there. Her knife slid between the plates of its armor and found the soft flesh beneath. The second guard spun around and she was already past it. Her hand closed on the shock stick and twisted it free. She drove it into the guard's neck and pressed the activation button. Blue lightning danced through its body and it collapsed. The third guard had time to draw its weapon. It raised the energy pistol and Kira threw her knife. The blade buried itself in the guard's shoulder. The pistol fell. Kira was across the room before the guard could scream. One strike to the throat. It went down. 3 guards. 4 seconds. The Kirani stared at her. Every single one. Dozens of golden and silver and amber eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel exposed. Judged. The lead silver Kirani walked toward her. The half-attached collar dragged on the ground behind it. It stopped at her feet and looked up. Kira knelt down and carefully removed the collar. The fur beneath was burned. They had already used the shock function. Anger burned in her chest, but she pushed it down. Later she would deal with that. Later she removed the collars from the other 2 silver Q. They pressed against her legs, making that purring sound. Grateful, then she looked at the other cages. Dozens of Kirani watched her, waiting. Her mission was complete. She had the data. She needed to leave. Every second she stayed increased the risk of capture, but she could not leave them. Not now. Not when they were all looking at her with those eyes. Kira started opening cages. The Kirani poured out like a silver river. They flowed around her legs, touched their noses to her hands, brushed their tails against her arms. They made sounds. Not the purring sound. Something different. Something that felt like gratitude. When the last cage was opened, Kira counted 47 Kirani, all free. Or looking at her. She had no idea what to do with 47 small alien creatures. Her ship could maybe hold 10 of them comfortably. This was insane. But when she looked at those eyes, she could not regret her choice. The station alarm changed. A new sound, louder, more urgent. They knew she was here. They were coming. Kira stood up. The 3 silver Kirani took positions around her feet. The rest of the creatures spread out behind her. 47 pairs of glowing eyes watched her back. She started moving toward the docking bay. The Kirani followed in perfect silence. Somewhere behind her a door burst open. Shouts in Vexari language. Running footsteps. The hunt was on, but this time the human was not running alone. The corridor had split into 3 directions. Kira stopped and checked her memory of the station layout. Left led to the engineering section. Center led to crew quarters. Right led to the docking bay. Her ship was waiting in docking port 7. 15 minutes to get there. Maybe 10 if she ran. She looked behind her. 47 Kirani waited in the shadows. The 3 silver ones sat closest to her. The lead one tilted its head. It seemed to be asking a question. Right we go. Right. Kira did not speak out loud, but the Kirani moved as if they understood. They flowed around her and headed down the right corridor. Some ran ahead. Some stayed beside her. Some fell back to watch behind them. They were hunting with her, like a pack. The docking bay was at the far end of the station. To get there, she would need to pass through the recreation area and the secondary control hub. Both would be full of Vexari crew members. She could not fight them all. She needed another way. The maintenance tunnels. They ran through the entire station. She had used them to move around unseen for 3 days. The entrances were small and hidden, perfect for a human trying to stay invisible. She found an access panel and pried it open. The tunnel beyond was dark and narrow. She slipped inside and looked back. The Kirani were pouring through the opening behind her. Their small bodies fit easily into the tight space. Their glowing eyes lit the darkness like stars. They made no sound. Their paws left no prints on the metal surface. Kira started moving. The tunnel twisted and turned through the station's inner walls. She had memorized the layout during her first night. Left, left down, right, through junction, up left again. Behind her the Kirani followed in a long silver line. She could not see the end of it, just eyes glowing in the dark. Dozens of them, watching her, trusting her. The tunnel opened into a larger space. A junction where multiple maintenance routes connected. Kira stopped to check her location on her wrist display. The lead silver Kirani suddenly went stiff. Its ears flattened. Its fur stood up along its spine. It made a low sound that Kira had not heard before. A warning. She listened. Nothing. Silence. Then she felt it. A vibration in the metal floor. Regular rhythmic footsteps. Heavy footsteps. Coming from the tunnel ahead, the Vexari had figured out her route. They were sending soldiers through the maintenance tunnels to cut her off. Kira looked at her display. There was another route, but it would take her through the reactor section. The radiation there was not deadly to humans, but it would make her sick for days. She had no other choice. The lead Kirani made that warning sound again, but this time it was not looking ahead. It was looking at a side tunnel that Kira had not noticed. The opening was tiny, barely large enough for her to squeeze through. The creature walked to the opening and looked back at her. Its golden eyes seemed to say, "Follow me." Kira did not know where that tunnel led. It was not on any map she had seen, but the Kirani had lived on this station. They knew paths that the Vexari did not know. They knew secrets. She made her choice. She trusted them. The tunnel was tight. Kira had to crawl on her stomach in some places. The metal scraped against her suit. Her shoulders barely fit through narrow gaps. But the Kirani moved easily. They slipped through the darkness like ghosts made of silver smoke. The tunnel went down, then up, then down again. It twisted through parts of the station that seemed abandoned, old sections, maybe original construction that had been built over and forgotten. After what felt like hours, the tunnel opened into a large dark space. Kira pulled herself through and stood up. She activated the light on her wrist display. She was standing in a garden, not a garden like on Earth, an alien garden. Strange plants with leaves like crystal, flowers that glowed soft blue in the darkness. A small stream of water ran through the center. The air smelled sweet and clean. The Kirani spread out around her. They moved through the plants, brushed against the glowing flowers, drank from the stream. This place was special to them. She could see it in the way they moved, relaxed, safe, that this was their home. Before the Vexari captured them, before the collars and the cages, the lead silver Kirani walked to the far wall and sat down. It looked at a section of metal that was darker than the rest. Another tunnel entrance. Hidden by shadows, Kira walked over and looked inside. The tunnel was short, just a few meters, and at the end she could see light, familiar light, the blue-white glow of a docking bay. The Kirani had led her directly to her destination. She turned to look at them. 47 creatures in the garden of crystal and light. They watched her with those intelligent eyes. They had saved her mission. They had given her a path when she had none. That the words came out before she could stop them. Thank you, the lead. Kirani walked over and rubbed its head against her leg one more time. Then it stepped back and sat down. The others gathered behind it. They were not following anymore. This was where they stayed. This was their place. Kira felt her heart ache. She wanted to take them with her, all of them, but her ship was small. The journey was dangerous. They were happy here, safe in a place the Vexari had forgotten. She knelt down and looked at the lead Kirani. She memorized those golden eyes, that silver fur, that face that was so much like a tiger from Earth but also completely alien. I will come back for you, all of you. I promise. The creature blinked. Its ears moved forward. It made a sound that might have been acknowledgement. Kira stood up. She turned toward the tunnel that led to the docking bay. She took 3 steps. Small paws touched her ankles. She looked down. The 3 silver Kirani sat at her feet, the same 3 that had first found her in the storage area. They looked up at her with determination in their glowing eyes. The lead one stood up on its back legs. It put its front paws on her leg. It made that purring sound. Kira felt tears burn in her eyes. She never cried. She had not cried in 7 years. But something about these 3 small creatures broke through every wall she had built. Okay, you 3 can come. The Kirani dropped back to all 4 paws. They walked to the tunnel entrance and waited. Kira looked back one more time at the garden, at the 44 Kirani that would stay behind. They watched her in silence, trusting her to keep her promise. She would, no matter what it took, she would come back. She crawled through the short tunnel. The 3 silver Kirani followed close behind. The light grew brighter. The sound of machinery grew louder. She emerged into the docking bay. Her ship was there, right where she had left it. Docking port 7. A small, fast vessel designed for 1 person. It would be cramped with 3 Kirani added, but they would manage. 2 guards stood between her and the ship. They had their backs to her, watching the main entrance, expecting trouble to come from the other direction. The 3 Kirani spread out without being told. They moved in perfect silence. They positioned themselves behind the guards. Kira smiled. She moved forward. The guards never saw her coming. The ship's engines hummed to life. Kira's fingers danced across the control panel. Systems online. Shields charging. Navigation locked on the nearest jump point. 12 minutes to reach safe distance from the station. The 3 Kirani had found spots on the bridge. 1 curled up on the co-pilot chair. I sat on the console to her left, watching the screens with curious eyes. The 3rd positioned itself on the floor beside her seat, standing guard. The docking clamps released. The ship drifted backward out of the port. Through the view screen, Kira could see the massive bulk of the Vexari station filling the sky. Lights were flashing everywhere. Alarm patterns. They knew she was escaping. She pushed the throttle forward. The ship surged into open space. The communication panel crackled. A voice spoke in Vexari language, harsh and demanding. Kira did not need to understand the words. She knew what they were saying. Stop, surrender, or we will destroy you. She turned off the communication channel. The jump point was marked on her navigation display. A small area of space where the fabric of reality was thin enough to punch through. To reach it, she would need to cross 50,000 kilometers of empty space. The Vexari ships would try to intercept her. The scanner showed 6 contacts launching from the station. Fighter-class vessels, fast and deadly. They were fanning out into a pursuit pattern, cutting off her escape routes. Kira's ship was fast, one of the fastest in Earth's fleet, but 6 against 1 were bad odds even for her. The Kirani on the console made a sound, not alarm, something else, curiosity. It was watching the scanner display. Its golden eyes tracked the movement of the enemy ships. One of the Vexari fighters accelerated ahead of the others. It was trying to get in front of her, block her path, force her to change course. Kira watched its movement pattern. The pilot was good, skilled, experienced, but humans had been fighting in the air for over a century. They had learned things that other species never needed to learn. Earth's gravity was heavy. Earth's atmosphere was thick. Flying on Earth was harder than flying anywhere else in the known galaxy. She smiled. Let them come. The lead fighter opened fire. Energy beams streaked across the darkness. Kira rolled her ship hard to the left. The beams passed through empty space. She pushed the nose down and accelerated directly toward the attacking vessel. The Vexery pilot hesitated, just for a moment. In that moment, Kira fired. Her ship carried human weapons. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to a fraction of light speed. They could not be deflected by shields. They could not be dodged once fired. They hit with the force of a small bomb. The Vexery fighter came apart in a flash of light. The other 5 ships changed their approach. They were more careful now. They spread out wider. When came at her from multiple angles, the Kirani on the console was making excited sounds. Its fur was standing up. Its eyes were wide. It was enjoying this. Kira laughed despite the danger. You like combat, little one. You might be part cat after all. She threw the ship into a spiral pattern. 2 fighters tried to bracket her from above and below. She cut the engines and let the ship drift. The fighters overshot. She spun the ship around and fired at their unprotected rears. 1 fighter exploded. The other lost its engines and went spinning off into the darkness. 3 left. The remaining Vexery pilots were scared now. She could tell by the way they moved. Hesitant, uncertain. They had expected an easy kill. A small human ship against 6 of their best. Instead, they were watching their friends die. On Earth, there was a story about a small group of soldiers who held off a massive army at a mountain pass. 300 against thousands. They fought because someone had to. They fought because giving up was not an option. Kira was 1 person against an empire, but she carried the data that could save her world. She carried 3 small creatures that had trusted her with their lives. She would not fail. The jump point was getting closer. 7 minutes. She could make it. A new contact appeared on the scanner. Large, very large. Coming from behind the station. Kira felt her stomach drop. A Vexery battle. Full military class. Enough weapons to vaporize a small moon that was moving to intercept her. Its weapons were already charging. The 3 remaining fighters pulled back. They did not need to fight anymore. The battlecruiser would handle everything. Kira pushed her engines to maximum. The ship shook with the strain. Warning lights flickered on the console. The Kirani beside her made a questioning sound. We are in trouble, she admitted. The battlecruiser opened fire, not at her ship, at the space ahead of her, creating a wall of energy that she could not fly through, cutting off her path to the jump point. She swerved, tried to go around. More fire blocked her. They were hurting her, pushing her back toward the station. Her ship had enough firepower to destroy fighters. It had nothing that could scratch its battlecruiser. The communication channel activated on its own. Override. The battlecruiser was forcing a connection. A Vexery face appeared on the screen. Blue glass skin, purple eyes that burned with cold anger. Admiral Vexroth himself. Human. His voice was translated by the ship's computer. Flat and mechanical. You have stolen from me. You have killed my soldiers. You have freed my property. He meant the Kirani property. That was all they were to him. You will surrender now. You will return what you have taken. You will face judgment. Kira looked at the screen, at those cold purple eyes. She thought about the collars, the cages, the shock marks on the Kirani's fur. No. The Admiral's face twisted with surprise. Then anger. You cannot escape. Your ship is nothing against my vessel. You will die, maybe, Kira said, but I will die free. And I will take as many of you with me as I can. She cut the communication channel. The battlecruiser's main guns began to charge. The ship's sensors detected the energy build up, massive, overwhelming. 1 shot would vaporize her completely. The Kirani on the console made a strange sound, different from anything before. It touched its paw to the screen, to a part of the display that Kira had not noticed. A small blip, moving toward the battlecruiser from behind. Another ship. Kira enhanced the image. The blip resolved into a vessel, small, fast, and bearing markings that made her heart stop. Human markings. Earth military. A second blip appeared, then a third, then a dozen more. The cavalry had arrived. Admiral Vexroth's face appeared on her screen again, this time without the arrogance, this time with something that looked almost like fear. More human ships were dropping out of hyperspace, not just military vessels, a whole fleet. Earth had sent everything. The communication channel crackled with a new voice, human this time, warm and familiar. Commander Chen, this is Admiral Torres. We received your emergency beacon 3 days ago. Sorry we are late. Traffic was terrible. Kira laughed. Tears rolled down her cheeks again. Admiral, your timing is perfect. The Vexery battlecruiser was already turning, retreating. The fighters scattered like frightened birds. They knew they were outmatched. Earth's fleet formed a protective wall around Kira's small ship. Weapons tracked the retreating enemies, daring them to try something, but the Vexery did not try anything. They ran. The Kirani on the console made a satisfied sound. It curled up and closed its eyes. Danger over. Time to rest. Kira set her course for the nearest Earth vessel, a medical ship. She needed rest too, but first she opened a channel to Admiral Torres. Admiral, I have the data, and I have 3 passengers who need sanctuary. The Admiral's face appeared on her screen. Gray hair, kind eyes, a face she had known since she was a child. 3 passengers. Kira looked at the sleeping Kieran, at the other 2 who watched her with those golden eyes. It is a long story, Admiral, but there are 44 more where these came from. We made a promise. Admiral Torres smiled. Then we will keep it, Commander. That is what humans do. 3 months passed like water through open fingers. The data crystal had changed everything. It contained the complete Vexery invasion plan. Every ship, every route, every weakness in their command structure. Earth's military spent weeks analyzing the information. They found patterns, vulnerabilities, ways to fight back that nobody had imagined. The Galactic Council took notice for the first time. A primitive species had infiltrated a Vexery station, stolen classified data, destroyed fighters, escaped against impossible odds. Other species began to look at humans differently, not as weak newcomers, as something more dangerous. Kira spent most of those 3 months in debriefing rooms, answering questions, explaining her methods, describing everything she had seen on the station, every corridor, every guard pattern, every security system, but she never forgot her promise. The 3 silver Kirini stayed with her the entire time. Earth's scientists wanted to study them. The government wanted to put them in a facility for alien creatures. Kira refused. She had spoken directly with Admiral Torres, with the President, with anyone who would listen. These creatures are not property, she said again and again. They are partners. They saved my life. They saved Earth. In the end, humanity did what it had always done. It made room at the table for new friends. The Kirini were granted protected status. They were classified as intelligent beings with full rights under Earth law. The 3 silver ones were registered as Kira's companions. She named them after ancient warrior spirits from Earth mythology. Athena, Artemis, Ares. But 44 Kirini still waited on the Vexery station. 44 pairs of glowing eyes, trusting a human to keep her word. On the morning of the 93rd day, Kira walked onto the bridge of a new ship. The vessel was called Hope's Promise. It was larger than her old scout ship, built for a crew of 12, armed with the latest weapons Earth had developed, designed for exactly one purpose. Rescue. Admiral Torres stood beside her at the main view screen. The stars stretched out before them like scattered diamonds. The fleet is ready, Commander. 57 vessels, our largest deployment since first contact. Kira looked at the tactical display. Earth's ships were assembled in perfect formation. Warships, transports, medical vessels, everything they needed, and their main fleet is defending their core systems. They expect us to attack them. The station will have minimal protection. The Admiral smiled. They still do not understand humans. They think we only fight for resources, for power, for territory. Kira touched the small shape nestled in the chair beside her. Athena opened one golden eye and made a content sound. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, she said. Always have, always will. The fleet jumped. Hyperspace wrapped around them like a river of light. Time stretched and compressed. The distance between stars became nothing. When they emerged, the Vexery station hung before them like an insect caught in amber. 23 Vexery ships guarded the station, a fraction of what had been there before. Most had been called away to defend more important targets. The station commander had protested the order, but Admiral Vexreth was no longer in charge. He had been removed from command after the embarrassment of letting a single human escape. The new commander was young, inexperienced, afraid. He made mistakes. The battle lasted 47 minutes. Earth's fleet cut through the Vexery defenses like a knife through silk. Human tactics were unpredictable. Human weapons were devastating. Human pilots flew like they had nothing to lose. Because they did not. Every soldier in that fleet knew what they were fighting for. Not territory, not resources, not revenge. They were fighting to rescue 44 small creatures that had helped save humanity. When the last Vexery ship retreated, Kira took Hope's Promise into the station's docking bay. She walked the same corridors she had crawled through 3 months ago, past the command room, past the holding cells, through the maintenance tunnels. Into the garden of crystal and light. They were waiting for 44 Kirini sat in the garden like statues made of silver and gold. Their eyes glowed in the darkness. When they saw Kira, they stood up. They walked toward her in a wave of soft fur and gentle sounds. The lead Kirini from before, copper-colored with amber eyes. It stopped in front of her and tilted its head. I told you I would come back. The creature made a sound that filled the entire garden. The other Kirini joined in. It was music, strange alien music that made Kira's heart ache with joy. Behind her, the rescue team stood in amazed silence. Soldiers who had fought through enemy lines, medics who had prepared for injuries and trauma. They watched as 44 alien creatures welcomed a human woman like she was family. One of the soldiers spoke quietly to another. Is this normal? Do humans always do this? The other soldier smiled. This is exactly normal. This is what being human means. The evacuation took 3 hours. The Kirini were brought aboard the transport ships. Medical teams checked each one, removed old collar scars, treated old wounds. Every creature was photographed and documented, given a clean bill of health. Given freedom. When Hope's Promise left the station behind, Kira stood on the observation deck. Earth's fleet surrounded her. 57 vessels filled with soldiers and crew, but the ship beside her carried the most important cargo. 44 Kirani who would never wear collars again. Athena sat on her shoulder. Artemis and Ares curled around her feet. The journey home took 2 weeks. During that time, something remarkable happened. The Kirani began to bond with the human crews. They slept in bunks with soldiers. They sat on the laps of engineers. They followed doctors through the medical bays. They played with maintenance workers in the cargo holds. The scientists on board studied this behavior. They had never seen anything like it. Kirani were supposed to be wild, untamable, hostile to all species. But the Kirani were not hostile to humans. They were drawn to humans. They sought out human company. They made those purring sounds when humans touched them. One scientist developed a theory. Humans gave off a particular emotional signature, something in the way they felt, the way they cared, the way they formed bonds. It called to the Kirani like a song calling to a bird. Humans had been partners with animals for 50,000 years. Dogs, cats, horses, elephants, dolphins. Something in that long history had changed humans, made them different, made them resonate on a frequency that other species could not match. The Kirani recognized that frequency. They responded to it. They trusted it. The Galactic Council called it primitive. They said it was a weakness. They were still wrong. Earth welcomed the Kirani with open arms. A sanctuary was built in the mountains of what used to be Switzerland. High peaks and clean air and crystal clear streams. The Kirani explored their new home with wonder in their golden eyes. Some chose to stay in the sanctuary. Others chose to live with human families. A few were recruited by Earth's military. They proved to be exceptional scouts and trackers. Their senses were sharper than any technology. Their loyalty was absolute. The Vexari invasion never came. The data Kira stole had exposed every weakness in their fleet. Earth's allies used that information to launch coordinated strikes against Vexari supply lines. The Empire began to crumble from within. On the anniversary of the rescue, Kira returned to the sanctuary. She walked through the meadows where the Kirani played. She sat by the stream where they drank. She watched the sun set over the mountains with Athena on her lap. The copper-colored Kirani from the garden approached her. It was larger now. Healthy, its amber eyes glowed. Bright in the evening light, it sat beside her and looked out at the mountains, at the sky painted red and gold, at the world that was now its home. Kira reached out and scratched behind its ears. It made that purring sound. In the distance, a group of human children played with young Kirani. They chased each other through the grass, laughed together, tumbled together. No collars, no cages, no fear. This was what humans fought for. Not power, not glory, not territory. Connection, trust, the simple miracle of different beings, choosing to care for each other. The Galactic Council still did not understand. They probably never would. But the Kirani understood. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Kira watched the sun disappear behind the mountains. The first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the Vexari were retreating. Other species were watching. The galaxy was changing, and it had started with 3 small creatures who followed a human through the shadows, who trusted when trust was all they had, who sparked chaos simply by being brave enough to walk behind her. She had tried to slip past guards. Little tigers had sparked chaos by marching behind her, and together they had changed everything.